Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of the Powercast. So today I have Erik Rokeach, and he is from Social Proof Consulting. Now, I heard his name years ago, like when I first started out as a personal trainer about 8 years ago. Lots of amazing people in the US doing amazing things, and we've never actually connected before this, but I saw a post that he put up on Facebook last week, and I told him I don't normally read people's posts, especially long posts, and it was a long
Yeah,
post,
it was long.
but it really spoke to me. And he talked about the hustle mentality and how it has changed his life. And I really that's something I'm passionate about, and I think so many people are caught up in. So I invited him on today, and I want to speak about that and really share his message with the world. So thanks for joining.
Oh, thank you. It's something I'm super excited about. I'm very passionate about this as you are. And I think there's a message that goes along with it that people aren't hearing. And
Yeah.
so that's where I was like, I think this is the thing that people need to hear, because it's really, we talk about the hustle and grind mentality. I think it's causing a lot more harm than people realize. Like, we celebrate it. We think it's this amazing thing and you can get a lot of stuff done, but it's causing a lot of problems. And
Mm.
people aren't aware of it. So that's kind of, I'm happy to be here, talk about that, and just
Yeah.
help out wherever I can.
Yeah, thank you. So you just said like people celebrate it. Why do you think people celebrate that and wear it? Like, I've said before that I was wearing that as a badge of honor years
Oh
ago.
yeah.
Why do you think
Yeah.
that is?
Well, it's sexy, right? It's easy to talk about. It's sexy. You hear those amazing stories of triumph where people talk about overcoming incredible odds because they've just grinded their way through it. And in a way, there's really nothing wrong with it. I think that's amazing. You kind of have to hustle and grind at certain points to live that way, but it's just very sexy. It's not sexy. Like, let's put it this way. Peace of mind is not sexy. You couldn't put it on a billboard. It's hard to sell it because it's a feeling, right?
Yeah.
Hustle and grinding is a lot easier. You can just say, I worked 23 hours today, and then this week I'm going to put in 140. It's easy to just show that. And people are like, wow, that's impressive. This guy did that. So
Mm,
it's just a lot sexier. It's easier to showcase than it is saying, I was able to do these things. I feel amazing about myself, but I'm happy with that. It's a lot
mm,
easier to do that.
mm. But do you think people can get the same level of success, results, money, achievements doing it in a different way?
Yeah, I think that's the $1 million question. The people who live that lifestyle don't think they can. And I
Mm,
can tell you this for 100% certainty. Once I was able to actually get out of that mindset and that lifestyle, I actually made more, I was much happier, more peace of mind. So it's absolutely possible. It's just
yeah.
that message is so consistent from everybody. You got to live this way to live that lifestyle.
Yeah.
That's what people believe. And then once they get caught in it, it's an addiction. It's hard to break.
Mm, mm.
So they don't see that there's another way to do it where you can step back and you can have direct, specific moments of hustle and grind, but
Yes.
not every single day.
Exactly, exactly. My partner actually says use hustle as a tool, not as a way of
Yep.
life.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's like anything else that we use, right? If we use a tool too much, we become dependent on it,
Yeah.
right? Like, so the more you use it, you're like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to get it done without it.
Mm,
So I think it's amazing as a really good tool, but structurally used in specific ways that are, strategic.
yeah.
Because, like, if you sit on your butt and you do nothing, nothing's gonna happen. There's
Yeah.
moments you're gonna have
Yeah.
to hustle and grind through everything to be able to get it done.
Yeah.
But if you just are strategic about doing it, right? We're designed as a species to kind of go through marathons, but those marathons really in the long term are actually sprints.
Mm,
Life is the marathon. Doing what we do are sprints. So if we do sprints strategically, that hustle and grind sprint, and then
mm,
back off a little bit, that's okay. That's
yeah.
okay. It's just
Yeah.
doing it so much that can be cause the problems.
Yeah. And I think even in those sprints, you don't need to work 20 hours a day. It's like still
No.
get enough sleep, still eat well,
No. And I think one of the biggest things about that I found that is there's something going on, and this is where there was a lot of red flags that I started to realize it. But one of the big ones is when I started realizing how guilty I was feeling for
Mm,
not working,
yes.
and I was like, wait. Is that right? Should I feel guilty for not trying to work? And am I getting farther away from my goals? Like, there was something there with that. And that's where I really started to all explore it. And then I realized that it
Mm,
was impacting relationships. Relationships fell apart. All these things were
mm,
happening. Friendships, business partnerships are falling apart. And
mm,
it was all because of that. And
mm.
so, like, you have to be aware of some of those flags, like feeling guilty. If you feel guilty about not working, there's something wrong.
Yes.
You should feel good about being able to get your work done and celebrate the time that you have and being
Mm,
efficient with that, because
mm.
the more time you can have, the better it is for you. I mean, that's why you're creating a business and doing those things, for freedom and for
Exactly.
time. How can you create that freedom and time
Mm.
if you're working all the time?
Exactly, exactly. And I really believe as well that like this started with, the Industrial Revolution of like, and years ago, it was this society where you had to either be born into money or you had to work more hours to make more money. And it's been passed down over the generations. And my dad, he's in his 50s and he's still hustling, and the more
Mm.
businesses he buys or invests into, the more team he puts on, the harder he works, when it should really be the opposite. And I
Yeah.
got a good work ethic from him, but I thought that I had to hustle like he
Yep.
was.
Yep.
And I'm interested to know, like, that's where I believe it comes from society and parents and things like
Yep.
that. Where did it come from for you?
Well, before I answer that, you brought up that really interesting thing about the parents and society. I just shared a post, and the last thing I had in that post was, by you living and working that way, you're teaching your kids that it's the right way to live
Yeah.
and work, and that work is more important than anything else.
Mm,
And if you have generations of that,
yes.
like you said, from Industrial Revolution, keep doing that. That's just going to the way it's going to be, and
Yeah.
it is passed down. It is learned, right? We're not born that way,
Yeah.
right? It is a learned process, with all of it. But I also feel that it's a learned process from parents, from society, but also from all the noise, all
Mm,
the distractions that come out there when you have people promoting it and just blasting it out there, saying this is the way you've got to do it.
mm.
And I forgot what your question was. I kind of went off on that. Sorry.
Where do you think no, that's great. Yeah, where do you think it came from for you?
For me, well, I'll never forget, I was 5 or 6. I played on a little football soccer team, and the guy his favorite phrase was like, you always be tenacious. Like,
Mm,
that's my earliest memory. He's like, no matter what in life, you're always tenacious. You always go. And so I always applied that. But I knew over time, I always had to work hard. I always worked hard for everything. And then it was just, when you're young and you're in school, you work hard, you get good results. So you get that
mm,
feedback. Oh, I work hard, I get good results. In the
mm.
real world, you work hard, there's no guarantee that you're going
Yeah.
to get good results, right? But after that like that training of getting good results from working hard through school and peers and all that stuff, that's where it started to cement. And then for me, where it overlapped and then just really blew up is when I started doing my own thing. I
Mm,
started listening to all those guys that said
mm,
that. And I
mm,
believed that's how I needed to live to
mm.
make what I wanted to make.
Yes.
And when I realized that's not who I was,
Mm,
it was too late.
mm. Yeah, yeah. How long were you in? Can you tell a bit of your story of like being in business and
Mhm.
what happened, like kind of like what you wrote in that post, and anything else
Yeah.
you want to share around the
Yeah. So
yeah.
I was, let's put it this way, I was never born an entrepreneur. I didn't even know what it was. Like, I go to school, get a job. That's all that I knew. I came out of college. I couldn't find work with the degree I had. And I
Mm,
met a guy who was running a construction company. I was like, sure, whatever, I'll do that. And really quickly, I moved up in that, and I became like the second in charge in that. And I knew nothing. And he taught me all these entrepreneurial things, but I just watched him work. And I was
mm,
like, And then I started realizing, it was all about the money. And
mm.
so when I realized, combine the hustle with all the money, and I kind of live like, I was like, all right, that's the way I'm going to go. So I had another job, started chasing jobs for money, left that, got really sick from working in the finance industry because I was chasing the money,
Mm,
working ridiculous hours, commuting 2 hours each way. And
mm,
then finally, I maybe 11 or so years ago, ventured out on my own. All those years of working like that, I was like, I'm going to build my business that way.
mm,
And I chased the money, which was wrong.
mm,
And then I applied a lifestyle that wasn't who I was at my core. And
mm,
that was just the magic fire that just blew everything up, right?
mm,
So at that point, I ended up having a business that just was a constant battle, struggle. The relationships I were falling apart. I didn't, all that. One
mm,
thing led to the next. Ended up in the hospital
mm.
with about maybe a day left to live. The doctors went to go get a priest. They didn't think I'd make it through.
Wow.
And even then, here's the craziest part. I got out of that. It took about a year and a half to recover from that.
Mm,
You would have thought that would have changed my life. All it did was teach me how valuable time was.
mm.
So I worked even harder from it.
Yeah. Wow.
And then it wasn't. And then I remember what happened was, I told you some of the flags. I started feeling really guilty about
Mm,
free time. And then I had one relationship where I literally destroyed it
mm,
because all I was doing was working.
mm,
And I remember the issues we were having. I was like, I don't have to worry about these issues. I can just bury my head in work and feel better.
mm,
And it
mm.
was then when it fell apart that I knew something was really wrong. And
Mm.
so that's the abbreviated version of everything that kind of took place. And that's where the journey and shift kind of went from to the other direction.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's full on. It reminds me of when I was pregnant with my second child and I was in and out of hospital because I was hustling and I was so sick. And
Mm,
everyone said, you have to slow down. You're making yourself sick. You're working too much. And I'm like, no, I'm just pregnant. I'm not an invalid. And I was just pushing. And my
yeah.
mentors at the time were like praising me for how much I was working. And I was making sales calls in labor, for God's sake. And like at the time, I was praised for that. And looking back, I'm like, that was stupid. you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
crazy.
And I think you mentioned something that's huge is because you said your mentors
Mm,
were saying, hey, that's good, that's good. And you know what? That's what scares me the most is
yes.
because we go and we see all this and we say, I'm going to go work with this guy because he can help me get to X level.
Mm,
But again, if that's not somebody that really, I guess the word is resonates with, isn't really aligned with who you are,
yes.
and you're in that left, they're going to tell you all the stuff that they've been preached upon and what they believe is right, and it
Mm,
may not necessarily be right for you. So when choosing a mentor, you've got to
mm,
step back and say, is this person really kind of coming from the same mindset that I'm coming from? But
exactly.
most of us don't know that. Like we're just so in that hustle, like I got to get this money or grow the business. We don't stop to think, is
Mm,
this person a good fit for me? We
yes.
just leave it as this person get me to the level we want to get at.
Exactly.
And I can tell for you from experience, that at the same time when things started really just blowing up for me and falling apart,
Mm,
that was also another piece of that too. I had a
mm.
mentor that was just crushing me.
Yeah. And I think it's like you said, it's not just the results they've gotten, but you match their mindset, morals, values, and lifestyle
Everything.
as well. Like,
Yeah, everything. It's almost like when you're choosing a mentor, somebody to work with, that should really be the first thing you look for.
mm,
But again, that's not sexy, right? Oh, I can get you to X level now in 6 weeks. That's sexy to sell. It's not me like, hey, this is who I am. This is how I operate. People like, no, they don't look for that. So,
mm,
but I've seen it a lot. I mean, one of the kind of unwritten things that happen in our industry or any entrepreneurial industry is how crappy a lot of coaches and mentors are,
mm,
right? You hear people tell you, hey, they did a great thing, but you never hear them talk about how much those people actually hurt or messed others up
mm,
until you bring them on as a client
mm.
and they say, oh, this person did, like, but it's all covered up. It's like just brushed under the rug kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah. Which is why I try to be so vulnerable and share my ups and downs and work on myself every single day. Like, I had most of today off because in the past I would have, I fly to London tomorrow. I fly to Australia on Thursday. And today I was like, I just need to chill. And I rescheduled calls and I canceled things. Whereas in the past, I would have jumped around and tried to get
Yeah.
everything done in one day. And I'm like, no, I need to give back to myself today.
Yeah. And do you feel healthier from that, more, I guess, peace of mind, more balance because of living this way?
Yeah, I jumped on a coaching call for myself this morning to do some mindset work. And then I went to the gym to kind of release that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I spoke to my partner. He's in Australia. And that's all I've done today. And I've just really chilled and given back to myself. Whereas in the
And you
past,
feel good about that too. Yeah.
exactly. And that's what the clients I bring in now, they want that. Whereas in the past, it was all about the money, like you said.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's a really good point that you brought up about the money. And you said that chasing the money was the wrong thing. What is it for you now? Like, what is the right thing or the important thing for you?
For me, and I just finished a coaching program as well. We dove more into that, which was great.
Mm,
And I knew it going into that program, it was more of me not chasing obviously anything. It was just I wanted to feel a certain way because in the end, all that money, all the business success, the reason we want it is just to feel a certain way.
mm,
So, and for me, it's just peace of mind.
mm,
It's that constant, okay, I just want to be cool with what I'm doing, happy to be able to do the things I love to do
mm,
and not, get super stressed, which is going to happen in business, but
mm.
I just have peace of mind. And I think that is the big thing. Again, it's not sexy selling that, but for me, that's where it's at. If I can have that peace of mind, have that, I guess you say, the security, the comfort, knowing everything's taken care of, and then being able to create something that there's an impact and it's helping others.
Mm,
That's,
mm.
I know that sounds cliche, but honestly, I mean, that really is the truth.
Yeah,
It's not about chasing the money. Whereas where before is like all my goals were like, okay, by this age I had to have this amount. By this age I had to have 4 businesses doing this, and
yeah.
it just, the thing is with that, again, if that's not who you are,
Mm,
it's just going to cause problems. It's never. You'll get there, but you're going to be so messed up after going through that process that that feeling of whatever it is you're looking for, you'll never find it. So you keep working and trying to find it.
Exactly. And I think that all comes from ego and wounds as well. Like, with my example, it was because I wanted to make my dad proud of me because I never
Yeah.
thought he was proud. And when I did mindset work on myself and realized that he'd always been proud of me, he just didn't know how to express it. I wasn't
Yep.
chasing that anymore. I didn't need that anymore. And so I attracted in different people and mentors into my life because I wasn't trying to have mentors be proud of me because I was lacking that
Yeah.
from my dad. And I think when people escape as well, when you said about, destroying relationships and things like that, I know for myself, and I'm keen to know from you, like for me, relationships feel hard. Like
Yeah.
when you've got to deal with emotions, it's like, oh, that feels uncomfortable. I'll
Yep.
just go over here and spend all my time I spent all my time in business or
Yeah.
powerlifting. I used to compete at a national level for powerlifting. And it's like, that's where I felt strong and powerful and in
Yeah.
control. And the other stuff was hard. So I'm like, I'll just dive into that. So,
That's the key right there. And this is the thing that I haven't found anybody talking about. And I'm trying to really spread this message is that now, of course, not everybody, but I've been through it enough and I've been away from it for years. And I've helped enough people to know that when you're doing that, when you're working to something to that extreme, whether it's work or powerlifting or triathlons, whatever it is, when it's that extreme, the reason you're doing it is not to achieve what you want in life. It's to avoid the deepest issue that you have in your life.
yes.
And it's so hard for people to realize that. And that was I was doing that to avoid the issues that I was going through, plain and simple. And everybody else is doing it. And you can see it. And like, here's a perfect example. Ironman triathlons are some of the most intense things you can do. And anybody who can accomplish and do those, I give all the credit to the world. But when someone who's working, full-time job or full-time business, and then they're training 40 hours a week for that on top of it, there's something you're avoiding in there. There's something you're avoiding when you got to put through
All
that
my
much
time.
suffering and strain and stress. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's there. And I think that's where people really need to step back and be like, what's going on? But it's scary, right? It's scary to dive in deep and find what's going on. So it's easier to put yourself and beat yourself up physically than it is to kind of go in and heal yourself emotionally.
And how did you come to that point where you realized what those wounds were, what was going on emotionally, and then how did you overcome them?
Took a while. That was help, that was therapy, that was coaching, figuring out, because all those years living that way, what it did is it just layered up all these other beliefs and structures on top of those issues that I couldn't see what everything else was going on. So I had to start peeling away years and years and pain and struggle and all these things to go through to actually come back and realize what some of those were. And then it was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. All that stuff that I had layered on, that was all bullshit.
Yeah.
and that's what this lifestyle does for you, is it piles on a lot of bullshit. And you become that lifestyle. And once you become that lifestyle, it ingrains belief patterns and subconscious workings and mechanisms. And it makes it so hard to undo that.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's so important that we're talking about this today, that you put that post last week, because it's hard. I found in the past that when I was stuck in that, people saw me as this strong, powerful leader who was getting shit done and making a difference and a role model. And I felt like, although I put up vulnerable posts, it was a lot of stuff about my past, I still wasn't being fully vulnerable. And I think people don't talk about mental illness or adrenal fatigue or anything that's negative, or like be truly vulnerable, because they're like, well, people see me as a leader and then I won't get as many clients, or I won't make as much money, or I've got to show up as this kind of person. So how did you get comfortable with being more vulnerable, sharing that kind of?
Well, it's always scary. I mean, that post that I shared, I actually started that. Right now we're end of October. I had the headline first few sentences in January of this year.
Wow.
Yeah, because I just something that came in and I put it away, and then all of a sudden it just hit me a few weeks ago, and I just was like, let me start just putting some notes to this, and then it just came out. But it's vulnerability with anybody is scary. But what I found, and this is across any industry, this is across anything, anybody in the world, is that we're tired of all the bullshit. We just want what's real. We want to we're losing connection with people.
Yes.
And we're being taught that all this consumerism and materialism is the way that life makes us happy. And you know what? There's things to that I think are great. It's nice. It's cool having nice things. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a disconnect that's taking place.
Yeah.
And when you are now more vulnerable from a really heartfelt place, people are going to resonate with that. But
Yeah.
it's scary. It's so scary because, like you said, people are going to think, oh, I've got this business. I'm not going to get clients. And on top of that, when you live a certain like hustle mentality and grind, like you build this mini empire,
Mm.
you've got all these people that now rely on you, whether it's employees or even customers and clients.
Mm.
If you're like, fuck this, and I'm out, then you worry about what happens to that business, what happens to those people.
Yeah.
So like being vulnerable and showing it, I mean, it takes so much strength to be able to step back from that type of lifestyle and what you're doing and being like, I really need to just shift something. And I can tell you for a fact and personal experience from people I know directly who have mini empires.
Mm.
That's their biggest fear with
Yeah.
that. They're miserable. They look great on the outside, but they're afraid of that empire collapsing and what's going to happen.
Mm.
Fear of the unknown, which is a really, really big fear among a lot of entrepreneurs.
Totally, totally. And I think, like you said about, material possessions, the house, the car, the clothes, the whatever, it's like, if it's coming from the right intention, go ahead
Yeah.
and buy it. But if it's coming from
Yeah.
a lack or, something like that, or ego or whatever, then it's like looking at the intention behind it.
Yeah. And the other thing to apply to that too is, well, there's nothing, I don't think, I used to think there was, oh, someone has like a Lamborghini. I'm like, oh, what, that was my own money mindset. There was something wrong with that. But I'm like, if it aligns with who you are as
Hmm.
well, and like you said, it's coming from the right space, there's nothing wrong with that. Like for me, there's certain cars, like, yeah, I don't drive around crazy, really beautiful cars. That's not who I am. But there are a couple that I'm like, that's who I am. And that's probably what I would end up getting. And
Hmm.
there's nothing wrong with that. Like there's nothing wrong with celebrating the fact that you've been able to do certain things
Yeah.
because you were able to do that. But if it's from the right place, it's
Hmm.
fine. It's when you go, people put up the pictures of the huge houses and the cars, and that's what they chase.
Hmm.
Again, if that's not in alignment with who you are,
Yeah.
it's going to cause issues. And a lot of times people put up those vision boards or whatever it is and
Hmm.
think, okay, I want this car and this house. That's because of outside societal influences and influences of people they allow into their lives that may not necessarily be what they want. It's just what others have. And they're like, I want what they have.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I think going back to the vulnerable thing as well, the more open and honest we are as leaders on on social media especially, and show that sometimes you cry, sometimes you're in therapy, sometimes you have health issues or whatever's going on, it makes people go, oh, this person's a human being, and I also cry, and I also go to therapy, and I also have health issues. And it makes you more real. They don't put you up on this pedestal and think that your whole life is perfect.
Yeah, it helps you to connect with people. I mean, and you'll see, and I'm sure you see this. Anytime you have a vulnerable post, you get more engagement with that,
Yeah.
right? People are like, "Oh my God, me too," or the private messages and things along those lines.
Mm.
Because again, people just want real.
Yeah.
There's this shift. There's something taking place, and I'm not trying to be woo woo or anything, but there's something going on, and there's a shift in this direction. People just want to be able to connect with others,
Yeah.
and they want real. They're tired of everything else, and the more real you can be, and not use it from a way to manipulate people, because knowing it's going to get engagement, the better off you're actually going to be. So
Yeah.
let people in, let people see the sides that are screwed up, because listen, we're all screwed up. We really are, right? We all are we all have an issue of something. So
Yeah.
no big deal, right? We all are, we've got it. What's a big
Yeah.
deal?
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
easier said than done, right? It took me
Yeah.
years to get to that point to be able to do that and share those things publicly, which
Yeah.
it did for you too.
Yeah.
But it is just let some of that stuff out. It's okay.
Exactly. Exactly. So, what I found as well over the last few years or so is that there's this kind of hustle crowd, and I saw this a few years ago. I don't know if it's as prevalent now. I think it still is, where they're kind of bagging out anyone who's anti-hustle,
Mm-hmm.
and they're saying, oh, well, they're just lazy, they're not working, they're never going to make the money, they're never going to be successful, they're never going to be well known. And then there are the people who are not doing enough, procrastinating, using excuses or whatever.
Of course.
How do you find like both? Any extremes aren't good, obviously. How do you
Mm-hmm.
find the balance between the two of getting shit done, basically being productive, creating helping people and creating the things that you want in the world, whilst also giving back to yourself and having the kind of life that you want as well?
Yeah, it's a challenge, honestly, to find both of those, because the reason people see that one side is because that's just the lens that they view it from. They
Mm.
don't know of seeing it from any other way. So when it's like anything, if you don't know something, you only know something when you're taught it or you see it, and you have to then your belief patterns have to align with that to make
Mm.
it work. So
Mm.
to find that, like, there has to be a shift, right? You said the extremes, one side or the other, are never good. Finding something in the middle. usually what happens is someone is like, and this is what happened to me. I was so on extreme one side, like I'm going the opposite side, right? The pendulum swings. And
Yeah.
then after you see the extremes and what causes it, you're going to come back to the middle. So,
Mm.
well, does it mean that you're going to, go through a lot of crap on one side and a lot on the other to finally come back to the middle? For some people, yes. Some people, no.
Mm.
It just depends on the awareness level. But it really comes down to just finding the belief patterns that you have in yourself, understanding where those are, if they're limiting, breaking those limiting beliefs, and then finding the things from inside that
Mm.
really align right with you and
Mm.
moving in that direction. If you can move and really focus more of what's going on inside, what your gut is telling you, what your heart is telling you, that's generally going to put you in the right path.
Mm.
But we've been through our entire lives, everything we've been taught is to say, okay, we need to think our way through everything. Everything's logical. And when
Mm.
you overdo that, you're going to end up in one extreme or the other.
Yeah.
And in the process of overthinking, we lose the ability to listen to ourselves, our heart, our gut.
Yes.
And that'll just keep pushing you out to the side. But once you come back and say, that doesn't feel right, that'll
Yeah.
tip you back towards being in between. That doesn't, oh, this feels right. This feels right. And it's going to put you where you need to be because
Yeah.
your gut's never wrong. Right?
Yes.
Like anytime you go against it, how many times do you just run into some sort of roadblock or stress that pops up?
Exactly.
So it just comes back to really just listening to your gut, realizing who you are, and
Mm.
unlayering all that shit that's just happened over those years to be
Mm.
able to find that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because when I was burning myself out all the time, it's like when you're at that point of burnout and when you're probably not sleeping enough, you're pushing yourself too hard and you're at your limit. So you snap at people, you might yell at your kids, you're
Yeah.
actually losing sales, losing money because you're too tired to pick up the phone, or you're actually actively pushing opportunities away from you because you've got so little energy that you literally can't
Yeah.
take any more on. And I think when you're at that limit, it's actually detrimental to your health, your business, your relationships, and everything else. And that's when you're too much in your head, like you said. And when you drop into your heart or your gut, it's when you're not trying to put too much into your day to day, week to week. You give
Mhm.
yourself that time and space, which then creates energy. And when you have time, space, and energy, you're able to, in doing things like meditating, slowing down, being still, you're
Yeah.
able to then listen to your heart and gut and get these ideas of this intuition and self-awareness of what you do actually want in your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a big part of that shift for me as well was including the meditations, the
Mm,
journaling, going through all of that and learning that that was the process. Because what'll happen if someone continues to live in that lifestyle or chase the money or whatever, they're going to realize at some point it's not making them as happy as they thought it would be. So then
yeah.
they start realizing, trying all these other external things and realize, no, it's got to be some of the internal stuff.
Yes.
Thing that is just really strange to me, and I get it. It's much better now than it was, as though that fear of being woo woo, right? That spiritual side of stuff, which, right, there's a condescending look upon a lot of that,
Mm,
but it's a lot less now than it's been. 10 years
yeah.
ago, if I were to bring up the word meditation, people would have thought I was a crazy person.
Yeah.
Right? Today, a lot more entrepreneurs are doing because they're realizing that living this way is not healthy.
Yes.
So we have to come away from the fact that woo woo, if that's the phrase you want to use, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But there is a stigma against that
Mm,
because, and it's the same thing as having a stigma against, mental health. It's the same
mm,
type of thing. It's all related. It's all tied in.
mm.
But like you said, to create that space, you've got to have that. You've got to be able to find things that can create that space for you to be okay, be at peace with yourself. Because when you're at peace, that's when certain things just start to come out, and
Yes.
you'll be like, oh, okay. And it's not an idea for like a new business. No, sometimes it's like, oh, I need to actually just take a day and do nothing.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be so hard. But wait, I'm not doing this work. You're gonna wrestle with those old belief patterns.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you listen to the gut and you follow it, you're
Mm,
like, oh, I got something here. I
yeah.
got something. So the big challenge of all of it is finding, if you're moving away from that type of really crazy lifestyle and coming into, it's finding that balance, like you said, in between. It's really difficult because those old belief patterns, the subconscious is just working to push you in the way that you used to doing it.
Mm,
But if
mm.
you find that space, like you mentioned, it's going to come back to you. It's just going to takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's having patience and knowing that it's okay to take time as well. And I think,
Yeah.
so when you said before that, when you were given one day to live and that didn't change, what was the turning point for you? Like, was there a specific
Yeah.
turning point that made you go, okay, I really need to stop this now?
it was a pretty serious relationship that I had had.
Yes.
Um, another one that I had destroyed.
Yeah.
And I remember it falling apart. And I remember talking to her and telling her that I know something's wrong,
Mm.
but I didn't know what it was.
Mm.
And, the relationship ended, and I knew as it was ending, I was like, I've got to get help. I've got to figure this out,
Mm.
because it was just so many of those like important people and moments in my life that I just kept messing things up. I was like, and I realized it was me. And it
Mm.
was that moment when that last one that I had basically destroyed, that I knew something was really wrong that I had to figure out and had to go get some help for.
Mm.
And that was the journey. That was probably 6 years ago now.
Mm.
And, it wasn't simple,
Mm.
but I wanted to do it. And that's, I think, where people have to come to that point. They have to want to make those shifts. They
Yeah.
have to want to make those changes, but they have to be aware something was wrong. And it took another life jarring event in my life for me to be able to become aware of that, because obviously dying wasn't enough. It was like I needed something else to just kind of slap me in the face and wake me up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh, and here's something too, just to note on that, about the whole death thing. Everybody's when they face their mortality, it's a very interesting experience.
Mm.
Everybody's going to handle it differently, but I had worked so hard, and I was sick too. I've had some autoimmune issues, and that was one of the things that had led to it. But I
Mm.
was in so much pain physically and emotionally that when I got to that point, I remember saying to myself, if I die, I'm okay with that. Like, I was at peace.
Wow.
I was really at peace with that. And, I knew it was serious when they said I were going to get a priest, but
Mm.
I'd come to terms. I was more upset with the fact that what it would have done to my family if I wasn't around.
Mm.
And so it was that I was like, that's why I'm going to hang around.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it through this, because I couldn't do that to them.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing was that lifestyle, it caused so much of that I got to the point where I was at death. I was like, yeah, I'm okay with dying. That's how much pain that type of lifestyle had
Yeah.
caused me.
How old were you then?
30.
Wow, so young.
Yeah.
Imagine like being cool with dying at 30 from that. That's crazy.
Yeah. And I look back and you hear these, sounds cliche, one of the best things that happened to me, it really was, because I still had to go through a lot of things to learn to get to the point that I'm at now. But
Mm.
it was the first moment of my life where I was like, all right, there's something, like, this lifestyle is not really right. So it was a big, big turning point, and it really was. And it allowed me to continue that way and hurt myself more, but it gave me that reason so that I could figure things out.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what it is for a lot of people. And that's why I talk about it now, is because I just don't ever want someone to end up in that position for something so silly that's really, you look back, you're like, it wasn't worth it. And it's still not worth it.
Yeah, totally.
It's not
Totally.
like I could have been in that position. I could have had $10 billion. I'd
Yeah,
have been like, I'm okay with dying. And then, it wouldn't have been worth it at all.
exactly. Exactly. Like time, connection, family, lifestyle is so much more important than any money in the world. Like,
Yeah. And I wouldn't have made it through
mm.
that if it wasn't for family, because at the time where I was, they literally, like, I remember my mom, I was in a different state, running business from a different state. She literally drove to where I was living because I couldn't get off the floor. And like, she picked me up, carried me out of this place, and physically brought me to the hospital.
Wow.
Like, if it wasn't for her, right, I wouldn't, it wouldn't have been through all this. So it was family. That's really what it comes back to, is it's time. You're not gonna bring that money with you.
Yeah.
But you're going to bring the experiences and the love and all that stuff that you have to that point.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so what does your lifestyle and business look like now?
Oh, I work a hell of a lot less now. I still work a lot. I still do. You're going to, but again, it's moments of strategic hustle. Okay, I know there's certain things I'm going to do. There's time. All right, this is going to be a busy time. I'm going to go with this.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? If I take Saturday off, I do nothing. I take 2 days off on a weekend, do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally fine with that. Like, I don't feel guilty. Like, I feel, again, I make more money than I did.
Mm-hmm.
I feel a lot lighter, a lot more free.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, it's helped me find a lot of the old passions that I used to have and find new ones that have come out, with that. I spend a lot more time outdoors doing things, because I think that's huge. I think every person who runs a business or is a type A personality should spend time outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels, it's not perfect life, of course. There's moments of, stress and anxiety and all that stuff, but it's completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. And I'm continuing to move in that path to keep even be better.
Yeah.
There's always says you can be better with everything. So
That's awesome.
and that means working hard, but doing it the right way.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Is there anything else you want to add to anyone listening?
I just feel if someone's watching this and they've heard anything that we've been talking about and they're living this, I just want them to pause for a second and just ask themselves, what it's gotten them.
Mm,
And I don't mean like material. I don't mean a house or car or all this and freedom. I don't mean that either. I just mean it emotionally. What
mm,
has that gotten you? If it's brought you that emotional peace that you really want, that feeling that you really want, keep doing it,
mm,
right? Keep doing it.
mm,
But if you feel like there's something, no matter what you get up in the morning, something's off. You're not able to put your finger on it. And no matter what you do to keep pushing to try and get it, it's not, you've got to stop and ask yourself, is it this type of lifestyle? Is it who I am that's causing this? You've got to reevaluate and you've got to find somebody to get some help for. If it's working with you, go ahead and do it
mm,
because they're never going to find it
mm.
if they keep working that way.
Yeah, totally, totally. Awesome. Thank you so much. It's such
Awesome.
an
Thank you. This was fun.
yeah, yeah. I could talk for hours with you.
Yeah.
Is there where can people find you, follow you online or where?
Yeah, so they can check out my website. It's erikrokeach.com. That's Erik with a K, and then the last name's Rokeach. But yeah, you can just catch me, friend me on Facebook. I'm pretty active on there, social media with engaging with people. So feel free, you can reach out. Any questions?
Yeah.
Do whatever I can to help out.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much.
All right, Ellie, thank you.